One thing I like to point out is the number of criminal cases and investigations brought against Republicans that quite clearly would never have been brought against Democrats. Off the top of my head, you've probably heard me say this before. But you can think of Scott Walker in Wisconsin and the efforts to use the John Doe laws of that state to silence and destroy people around him to take down Scott Walker, who upset the public sector unions and the Democrat apparatus of Wisconsin. No charges against Scott Walker. Didn't do anything wrong, but they were abusing. There were prosecutors there, state prosecutors, abusing their authority to go after him. Rick Perry in Texas. There was an effort to criminally investigate Rick Perry for abuse of authority because he was going to withhold funds from a prosecutor who would not step down, who had been arrested herself for drunk driving. But they wanted to prosecute that as a felony, misuse of his official position. And they had to drop that because it was so stupid. Governor Bob McDonnell, who the state authorities had no interest in going after, but federal prosecutors, no surprise there, went after him on the theory that even though he had received or had given no benefit of his public office, because he had hung out with a rich businessman who had given him and his wife some gifts, literally just hung out with him, had him at parties at the governor's mansion, he should face 11 years in federal prison, and his wife should also, who had no elected office whatsoever, she should also go to prison. Federal prosecutors a la Comey, if you will, the way that they do things. Can you think of any similarities? Oh, and then Donald Trump and the Russia collusion. I mean, of course, that's the biggest one of all, right? That's like the Mount Olympus of all abuse of prosecutorial authority cases for political means. But you'll also remember the Chris Christie case. The Chris Christie case. This was reported on endlessly by Democrat media as a major story. I mean, a fascinating tale of abuse of power. And you even had Lawrence O'Donnell, the blowhard host of The Last Word on MSNBC, say that because a 91-year-old woman was delayed medical treatment because of the traffic jam that high-level staffers, Chris Christie staffers, caused, that it was the, quote, the Willie Horton moment of Chris Christie's presidential campaign. Remember, Chris Christie was running for president at the time. And O'Donnell said, quote, I haven't been able to get the name of the 91-year-old woman who was delayed medical treatment that day because of the traffic jam and eventually died. And we don't know whether she died because of a delay in treatment, but in politics, that's not the way they play this game. So he didn't even know. He didn't even know if this woman could have been dead when they picked her up and took her in the ambulance. That can happen. She could have been dead on arrival. She could have had a condition. There was nothing they could do. And, she's 91 years old. He doesn't know. All he knows, though, is that this is the end of Chris Christie's presidential campaign because of a traffic jam that was caused by some of his aides. And this was MSNBC really leaned into this one. They treated this like it was a fascinating political tale. And Bridget Kelly and William Baroni were sent to federal prison for this, for causing this traffic jam. Now, producer Mark lives in New Jersey. Producer Mark, are traffic jams near the Lincoln Tunnel or the George Washington Bridge a rarity?
They're almost always happening. Right now, no, but in a normal situation, there is almost always traffic in both of those, tunnel, bridge, no matter what, yes.
Pre-pandemic, anybody who knows the George Washington Bridge or the Lincoln Tunnel to get from New Jersey into Manhattan would tell you the moment that you start getting close, you kind of hold your breath. You're like, please don't have this be terrible. Because this has happened to me a lot when I used to drive in from Washington, D.C. to come visit my family in New York. You can make great time for 4 hours. And, I made it from D.C. to New York, and you get within sight. You can see Manhattan. You can see it. It's right there. But you get stuck at that Lincoln Tunnel, and my, oh, my, you can sit there for 45 minutes, an hour, like it's nothing. Like it's nothing. Just sitting there. Same thing with George Washington Bridge, right? You can sit there all day. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. Now, the theory here was that these two aides to Chris Christie, Bridget Kelly and William Baroni, they created this traffic jam. They were guilty of federal crimes They got sent to prison for a federal fraud and federal wire fraud. You know what the wire fraud was? Writing emails to each other to create. This is when the federal government, they can use all these statutes to just hammer you. But writing these emails constituted a use of wire fraud. And yeah, that's what they did. That's what they did. They charged them with federal crimes, sent them to prison. Well, guess what? The Supreme Court has thrown out the Bridgegate convictions. And Justice Elena Kagan, who I will say, Elena Kagan is a liberal. She is a liberal, and she's on the Supreme Court. Elena Kagan is a smart lawyer. Elena Kagan is smart. I admit what's true. Justice Sotomayor, for example, is a third-tier lawyer and is just not at the level of understanding and comprehension of the law to be on the Supreme Court. Both liberals, but one of them, very smart lawyer. The other one, no. Kagan here wrote that not every corrupt, and now I believe it was a unanimous ruling. It was a unanimous ruling. So I will give credit to everyone on the court that they made the right call, which this is, but it's also, of course, it's a unanimous ruling. Federal wire fraud for writing an email to start a traffic jam. Now, this is the kind of act that, yes, people should be held. It's a stupid thing to do. People should be held accountable. But this is something you get fired for. This isn't something you go to federal prison for. Think of all the people that, during protests will stand in the street and block traffic. Should they maybe be arrested and processed because they're actively, personally blocking traffic? Sure. Do you send them to prison for 4 years? I mean, actually, I kind of think sometimes we should, but still. Federal crime. That's what they're saying. And here's what the Justice Elena Kagan, writing for this in this unanimous ruling, here's how she put it. Quote, not every corrupt act by state or local officials is a federal crime. Because the scheme here did not aim to obtain money or property, Baroni and Kelly could not have violated the federal program fraud or wire fraud laws. End quote. Think of how, and look, give credit, and the libs on the court, even Sotomayor, all right, I'm going to admit it. He's not a good lawyer, but, they did the right thing. Even Ginsburg, who I think had to call in for the oral arguments recently. There was this Babylon Bee piece about how they're trying to lock Ginsburg in not is it, what's the thing that they, in Star Wars, they put you, is it carbonite? Is that what they call it when they freeze you?
No idea.
You're not a Star Wars guy?
No, it's boring to me.
Wow. And you still haven't watched The Mandalorian, have you?
I have not. But producer Nick is telling us it is carbonite.
Producer Nick, he's a Star Wars buff, I know. Yeah, carbonite. They're trying to lock the joke in the Babylon Bee is they're going to lock Ginsburg and carbonite because and anything to make sure that she's okay. She's still on the Supreme Court, especially. I mean, if Trump wins re-election, they're not going to. I mean, I don't even know what they're going to do, but you're going to see Ginsburg show up, and she'll be like the first, cyborg that's ever been created. They're going to whatever implants they have to put in the technology, 21st century sci-fi stuff, whatever they got to do, they're going to do. That's how much they value having a Supreme Court as a super legislature for the left. But let's go back here to the moment, to the throw out here. And they mentioned the Governor Bob McDonnell conviction, which was also thrown out by the Supreme Court. These are Republicans. You think that's an accident? These are either Republican operatives or Republican politicians who are overzealously prosecuted by the feds. Oh, you mean the deep state has been around for a long time? You mean the deep state isn't just some new thing against Trump? Mm-hmm. That's right. If you're a lib, if you're a Democrat, you get to exist under a different set of rules. That's just the way it is. That's what we see happening time and again. But this was the right move. How can you be guilty of fraud and wire fraud for just doing something within your power? It was within their powers to do this. They called it a traffic study or something, but it was essentially a really dumb prank. And by the way, I don't think it's a funny one. I think traffic is not funny. I think it's really frustrating. And I think, I don't want to know what producer Mark would do if you put him in traffic for 2 hours because of a prank and then you handed him a baseball bat and said, those are the people responsible.
Oh, you don't want to know what he would do. No, it would not be pretty.
It would not be pretty. If he's going to admit it would not be pretty. So I understand, right? I understand. It's very frustrating. But, yeah, they should be fired. They should be fired and their reputation should be damaged. Federal prison? What's the fraud? Being a moron? If being a moron is a federal fraud and writing in an email about your being a moron is a federal wire fraud, we better really start locking up some politicians all over the place. This was absurd. The fact that federal prosecutors took it to this extent, the fact that a judge allowed this to happen in the first case, a unanimous overthrow of this from the Supreme Court just goes to show you, folks, there are a lot of political hacks and activists wearing robes and in prosecutors, judges' robes and in prosecutors, not like a normal robe. Hey, check out my. Not like that. I'm not a robe guy, by the way. I go to a hotel and I'll put on the robe just because I feel like you got to, if you're really getting into the hotel vibe. But I'm not a robe guy. Never have been. Where was I? I just got confused for a second. Yeah, so they had to. I was thinking about a time when you could actually go to like spas in these places and you could live normal life and wear a robe, and you can't do that anymore. So a win for justice here. These people, their reputations are ruined. Their lives are forever marred by this, but they shouldn't be in federal prison. And even all the libs in the Supreme Court agree. But remember my initial premise here. Where are the Democrats who are unfairly destroyed? The only one that can come to mind maybe for some of you is Blagojevich, who's clearly kind of a corrupt guy. But who's come to Blagojevich's defense for overreach of the government? Trump and Republicans. It's not Democrats that are saying, Blagojevich wasn't really that bad. He got a raw deal. They like the same people that want to control every aspect of your life now under the pandemic, the same people that want to tell you, what you could eat and you have to recycle and no plastic bags being used and all this stuff. Those same people like that the state, the big S state, is able to crush anyone they want using the courts and using the prosecutors' weapons. And that's not the country I want to live in. If you're going to go to prison, whatever you did should be able to be, in one sentence, it should be clear what you did, why it's bad, and why you need to have your freedom taken away. It shouldn't be some cobbled. It shouldn't be like the Logan Act, for example, which they went after Flynn on, right? It shouldn't be some bull crap that we all know is ridiculous. So there you have it. Bridgegate slapped it down.
We have a huge crisis here. We haven't had as many people unemployed since the Great Depression. Stores, businesses are closing all the time. More people are being laid off. People are have trouble in every way economically. We need big, bold action, and Speaker Pelosi and I are working very closely together on putting together a very strong plan, which you will hear shortly. The people like McConnell and McCarthy and even Trump who say, let's wait and do nothing, well, they remind me of the old Herbert Hoovers. We had the Great Depression. Hoover said, just let's wait it out. It got worse and worse. We need Franklin Rooseveltian type action, and we hope to take that in the House and Senate in a very big and bold way.
The progressive transformation that they will try because of the crisis we are going through is inevitable, right? This is what the fight is going to become. We have the reopening fight, but we also have the what does the government do as we're trying to, because the reopen is not going to be easy. It's not going to be clean. It's not going to be fast. So how much of a role does the federal government take in this whole process? That'll be interesting. We'll have to see. How much of a role does the federal government have to prop all of this up and make sure that industries that are battered by all of this, that entire sectors of our economy that they're on life support, they're not going to come out of life support, so to speak, hopping around doing backflips and everything's going to be fine. They're going to be limping. These sectors are going to be barely able to move, even once they're able to start some business again. They're able to re-engage in commerce. But the Great Depression was exacerbated and elongated by the New Deal and by FDR. Libs always fight on this. They say it's not true. There have been exhaustive studies of it. If you maybe this is something. There's actually one author in particular I'm thinking of that I'll reach out to on this and see if she'll come on and just make the case, because people need to understand that the New Deal made things in the Great Depression worse. It did not actually take us out of the Great Depression. So I know it's history, but the history is going to be informing policy right now, and that's why they're saying we need FDR type action, not the internment of people into camps. Well, I'm glad that Democrats will agree with that, right? Their hero FDR just kind of always gets a pass on that one. Also remember that he's still a hero to Democrats, and as we're in this era right now of more government control, more government power than we've ever seen before, how unthinkable is it really that they would try to force people off of their land and start telling people under the quarantine rhetoric, right? Under the quarantine rhetoric, you have to stay in this place that we tell you have to stay in. We're not there yet, but I didn't think we'd be where we are right now, and that was even a month or two ago, where people are saying, yeah, we'll just stay in lockdown forever. Oh, one more thing. My buddy Kayleigh McEnany had a great response. She's now White House press secretary. She's doing a great job. And she had a response to an assault, a verbal assault, of course, from one of the reporters, just trying to undermine her early on in the job, make her look foolish. And this was a fun one. Play 10.
Kayleigh, in a previous life, before you were press secretary, you worked for the campaign, and you made a comment, I believe, on Fox, in which you said President Trump will not allow the coronavirus to come to this country. Given what has happened since then, obviously, would you like to take that back?
Well, first, let me note, I was asked a question on Fox Business about President's travel restrictions. I noted what was the intent behind those travel restrictions, which is we will not see the coronavirus come here. We will not see terrorism come here, referring to an earlier set of travel restrictions. I guess I would turn the question back on the media and ask similar questions. Does Vox want to take back that they proclaim that the coronavirus would not be a deadly pandemic? Does the Washington Post want to take back that they told Americans to get a grip, the flu is bigger than the coronavirus? Does the Washington Post likewise want to take back that our brains are causing us to exaggerate the threat of the coronavirus? Does the New York Times want to take back that fear of the virus may be spreading faster than the virus itself? Does NPR want to take back that the flu was a much bigger threat than the coronavirus? And finally, once again, the Washington Post, would they like to take back that the government should not respond aggressively to the coronavirus? I'll leave you with those questions, and maybe you'll have some answers in a few days.
This is where you do narrator voice that they do not want to take. They're not going to have answers to those questions, and they will not be taking that back. All right, let's get some roll call going here in a moment with producer Mark.
Hey, Team Buck, it's time for roll call.
Yes. We have our tunes back. That's what I'm talking about, producer Mark. That's what I'm talking about. Also wanted to tell you that I watched the new Jerry Seinfeld stand-up special last night with the Snow Princess. And have you seen it yet?
Yes, I watched it last night as well.
Look at that. We're so simpatico.
Yes.
Gosh.
And I finished Waco.
What'd you think?
It was fantastic.
Fantastic, right? I mean, ATF, they make ATF look like a Mexican drug cartel or something.
Yeah.
It's really bad for the ATF in that
They don't
show.
make the FBI look good. I don't know if you've seen the end there, but they don't make them look good.
I haven't seen the ending yet, but I know what happens. So, but at least there's the one guy in the FBI who's like, maybe we shouldn't just
the way
kill
they
everybody.
portray it.
There's that guy, the negotiator guy.
I don't want to ruin it for you, but the way they portray it, he looks really good, the negotiator guy, and the other guys the tactical guys look awful.
Oh, of course. Well, you know that's coming. And also you have to remember that in the beginning of the show, it's based on two memoirs. One of the memoirs that the show is based on is the negotiator guy.
Yes.
So it's not surprising that he's like, I got an idea. Maybe we shouldn't just kill everybody. And the guy's like, no, we have all this cool gear. We're high speed. We got to go in there and shoot everybody and everything. And he's like, but maybe we could de-escalate for, you're like, I think the de-escalate guy might be onto something in this case, right? But
yeah, I think I would have sided with a negotiator there.
Yeah, the negotiator guy. The negotiator guy's like, wait, I got an idea. Maybe we don't have to absolutely create a catastrophe here. And then the other FBI guy's like, why are you such a wimp? let's go in there, let's blow everything up. It's like, woo. Those FBI guys are, you know what else, Snow Princess? We watched two things last night, and it was her choice. We watched the Seinfeld thing, and I will say, I'm obviously, the worst thing you can ever do is try to take a comedian's jokes and tell them, because that's always like, people will never want to talk to you again when you do that, because you just ruin it and it's not funny. But I think you can refer to the general topic, and his thing about porta potties. I mean, it actually, like, it was hurting me on the inside.
Yes. I 100% agree.
That was like the funniest thing that because it was so, some of his stuff about cell phones was really good too, but the porta potty thing was I thought he started out a little, almost like he was kind of nervous, like he hasn't done it in a long time. Like the first 5 minutes of the Seinfeld stand-up, I thought were, he was kind of getting, maybe that's true of a lot of stand-ups, but he was trying to get into a rhythm, and it was a little.
Yeah, I think he was warming up the audience a little bit. He was warming up himself.
Yes, that's right. It felt like he was kind of warming up himself, whatever. But when he got going, I gotta say, it was really good.
Yeah, he still has his fastball.
I mean, that, like, with the porta potty thing, that was so funny that, like, later on I thought about it to myself and still kept kind of laughing. And then with Waco, the other thing that Snow Princess wanted to watch was Die Hard, which she had never. We were looking for something to watch kind of late night, we were just passing out. And she's like, I haven't seen Die Hard. I was like, we could always watch Die Hard.
Yeah.
But of course, in Die Hard, you have Special Agent Johnson and Special Agent Johnson, who are like the quintessential jerk FBI agents in it. It's really funny, especially when the guy, it's kind of like the Waco guys a little bit. You've seen Die Hard, obviously.
Of course.
Yeah. Remember when the guy's like, yeah, we'll go in there hot and heavy, take about 30% casualties for the hostages. I can live with that. And everyone's like, what? It's the Waco guys are a little bit like that. There's a little bit of, they're like, half the people may die in the shootout we're going to start here, but you got to break some eggs to make an omelet.
I mean, since what eventually happens, the Waco guys were worse than that. Technically.
Oh yeah. Oh no, it's really bad. So, and at Ruby Ridge, the Weaver family at Ruby Ridge, they got $3 million from the government. So it's not like, that thing was bad. It was on a much smaller scale, but that was a bad shoot too. Anyway. All right, let's get to, I know, we get all excited about this stuff. I will say, though, I ordered from some gluten-free burgers last night from a restaurant that I wanted to try. And, when you read the reviews and you're like, maybe these people just don't like the place. No, they were right. I turned to Snow Princess. I was like, do you like your burger, honey? And she's like, she's trying. And I'm like, no, you don't. But hey, we put some money in the local economy and people are still working. And,
she doesn't order a regular burger?
Oh, no, she had a regular one.
Okay.
I had a gluten-free.
So the gluten-free and the regular burgers all sucked?
Both bad.
Okay.
Yeah, both bad. So that was a miss. Swing and a miss from the Buckster. All right, we got roll call, so we got to do it. And producer Mark, here it is. Greta. Always liked that name. Yes, Wisconsin is the Badgers, and our main college rivalry is the Minnesota Gophers. Oh, gosh, Gophers. Oh, yeah. In my opinion, the real Midwest beef is between Wisconsin and Illinois, though. Unfortunately, I live about a half a mile from the Illinois-Wisconsin border. Around here, Illinois residents are commonly referred to as fibs. Effing Illinois bastards. Whoa, that's pretty intense. Midwest beef isn't. That's funny. Their next line is Midwest beef is intense. I didn't know that. Yeah, I guess there's nothing better to do than hate on each other. Where I come from, nobody cares about mainland Michigan. The how do we say it? The Yoop? The up?
Youpers.
The Yoop is cool. And yes, we all sound like that, although we like to pretend we don't. Oh, yeah, we all sound like that. The Yoop. Oh, the Yoop is great. Oh, gosh. It's a great place. And I didn't know that there's any. I can't imagine people in the Midwest having all this beef with each other. But I do know, for example, from the NFL, which is the one sport that I have made an effort in recent years to really watch regularly, that the beef between the Vikings and the Bears is substantial.
Yeah, and the Packers and the Bears and
the Packers and the Bears. I mean, the Packers and Bears and Packers and Vikings is even bigger, actually.
Yes.
Yeah. So you can kind of sense that one. The weird thing for New York is our New York Football Giants play in New Jersey. Their stadium is in New Jersey.
So do your New York Football Jets.
Yeah, well, I mean, come on, the Jets.
Technically, the only New York football team is the Buffalo Bills.
Good call.
Huh.
I'm gonna tell Snow Princess is from Buffalo, so I'm gonna tell her that little bit of that factoid. I impressed her in the early days by telling her that the Goo Goo Dolls are in fact from Buffalo and are one of my favorite '90s rock bands. And I don't care what people say about that. The Goo Goo Dolls are great.
I have a friend who is obsessed with them.
They're great.
Yeah, they're good.
Their songs really stand up. I mean, they're really catchy. Good musicians. Anyway, Matthew writes, "Hey Buck, I just saw a local restaurant called Poblanos with a huge crowd outside. Turns out they've organized an event focused on a special day they're having, held outside with social distancing encouraged. I'm assuming if it's Poblanos, it was probably a Cinco de Mayo party. Not to but I mean, right?
Yeah, if this was sent this week, then yeah, it has to be.
Yeah. I love the ingenuity and their persistence through the crisis. It's truly American strong. North Carolina is sick of the quarantine. Shields high. Buck, please continue to keep us safe and warm at night." Matthew, that's what I'm here for. Shields high, keeping you safe and warm at night. That's what we do. Randy, "Hey, Buck, don't feel bad about your nerd trophies." Thanks, Randy. I won't. Producer Mark will make sure that I'm kept in check with my nerd trophies. "I competed in some chess tournaments back in the day. I didn't get no trophies, just a piece of paper. Only one girl was ever impressed by my chessboard prowess. LOL, I feel a little gross after reading the last sentence. Shields high." Randy, I like chess, actually. I think chess is a fun game. It's a fun game to play with somebody because you really, you can get super intense about it, or you can play more relaxed chess. My preferred version of playing chess with someone is with a nice glass of mezcal or tequila on the rocks or a nice red wine in hand. That's the way to do it. Maybe play some tunes, sit back, relax, and let Cat Stevens, let the cat purr. That's what you want to do.
It sounds offensive to people who play chess competitively.
I know, right? The people that are really into it, the super chess nerds. Or bishop to knight 6. I will take your rook with my pawn. I don't know why they're all Russian all of a sudden, but they are. Because we all know the Ruskies are good at chess, right?
Sure, why not?
I will defeat you. I will crush your king and take him from you. Just like that. No?
Yeah, that's exactly how they sound, I'm sure.
That's exactly how they all sound. Yeah. Go into the park even. You'll see some guy there named Igor who's like, "I will play you in speed chess. We will play for money, or we will play for who will cut off their finger."
I feel like this was a storyline on the Nickelodeon cartoon Hey Arnold. There's something about chess.
I've never seen that cartoon. I've even heard of it, so I'll have to take your word for it.
Wow.
Yes.
You really are old.
"My name is Sergey. I will take your house and all of your money if you don't win this chess match." That's how it goes. That's how it goes. Chris, Buck, love the show. I'm slow, so it took me a bit to realize. Oh, okay, Chris. Thanks so much, man. "COVID has now replaced climate farce as a means of establishing nearly full social control." Oh, I think he's slow to realize that, not that he loves the show. Now I get it. I was like, okay, if it takes you a while to love the show, as long as you love the show, I'm happy.
Clearly the host's a little slow to realize things, too.
Yeah. Wow. It's like that, It's like that.
You served it up on a plate for me.
You guys could all read.
Myself.
You guys should write in now and tell producer Mark he has to be nice to the host. Anyway, it gives them cover since even one life loss is too many, except, of course, baby butchering, which is life-saving to them. If this doesn't wake people up, nothing short of a police state will. Even then, it will take years. Yeah, no, there's been an ideological shift toward lockdown and the collective lockdown, the collectivist lockdown consensus that this can give them everything that they normally want and can't achieve through legislation or through constitutional means. There has been that shift that has occurred, so we need to keep that in mind. We need to remember that. Becky, "Hey, Buck, how do we as a nation charge the governors with treason who are not opening up their states, holding people hostage, and not letting our countrymen live free lives? They are withholding freedom from citizens, as you know. My state has been opening up in increments, but feels slow as heck, and my state started opening in the very first group of states that opened. We still have not been able to go shopping at a department store for necessities such as undergarments. Also, how the heck do we get Nancy Pelosi out? Cannot barely stand abiding in the same country with this lying, devious, more than privileged excuse for a House Speaker."
Well, Becky, Nancy Pelosi, she's a master legislator. She's gonna just, Trump is the devil, and
I don't know, man. How do you get rid of Pelosi? Tell the libs to stop voting for the worst person ever. And treason, as you know, is giving aid and comfort to the enemy under law, so you can't get these people for treason. And, I think that some are not opening the states up because they are really, really worried, but a lot are not opening it. And I mean this for citizens as well as leadership and political leadership. But a lot are also not opening it up, I think, for the political reasons of control and economic suppression. Right. And economic suppression is, in a sense, very much tied to control, because if you continue to suppress this economy, it means that you will be able to wrest control away from Trump and have control yourself. That C word keeps coming up for a reason. It's very central to the left's thinking. The libs are obsessed with it. More roll call here. Jonathan writes, "Hey, Buck, if it makes you feel better, no one can whistle with a mask on." Producer Mark, I think that's probably true, isn't it?
Or maybe they can and you just can't hear it as much.
Right, but so it would be a stifled whistle, but
Yeah.
can you even... I feel like it would be difficult. It would be, not that I'm good at whistling because I actually can't whistle, but that's not why I hate it. Whistling is an auditory violation, and it's terrible. No whistling. I know. See, I knew he was going to do that. He's just being mean now. Producer Mark is just running around spiking the football in the end zone with his whistle at the end of the show because he knows I'm happy that we got through another fantastic show, and so he can get away with his nonsense today. But it's, as long as you never do, and I'm serious, don't do this one on the show because people will, their eardrums will explode.
Yeah.
Or at least mine will. The thing where people put the fingers in the mouth, though, in the football stadiums, that I don't understand.
I can't even do that.
The person that is near you does not want their eardrums blown out so you can make a stupid whistle sound. Don't do that, folks.
I've had that happen to me at sporting events, too. It's not that I mind the whistling, it's just don't do it next to me.
It's just super obnoxious because it really is only loud to the people right next to you, and it's super loud to them, and no one else cares. I don't know why people think that's cool. That should be banished. It should get you, you should be treated like the person at Madison Square Garden who throws his hot dog on the floor, in front of, on the basketball floor or on the ice.
Yes.
Which is where they play hockey. See, I know some things.
Which is where they play hockey.
On the ice, true. Producer Mark, I will tell you, I actually tried, and I know it's on Disney Plus, so I will watch it. I tried to convince Snow Princess to watch Miracle, and you know what? She didn't want to watch it because we were so tired that she wanted to watch the whole thing through. But
Okay.
we will watch it.
I'm excited for that.
So we're going to take a Producer Mark recommendation there. Instead, we watched the first 30 minutes of Die Hard and fell asleep. Tallulah likes Die Hard, too, though. She's into it. She's like, yes, Die Hard. All right, Michael writes, "Buck, I really liked your segment with Andy Dean. I used to listen to him on radio every day back in the day. Hearing two big brains discuss politics and policy is great content." Shields High from Austin. KLBJ Austin, what is up? Great to talk to you, folks. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate that we've had a lot of growth in Team Buck Austin for the last couple of years, and KLBJ is a fantastic station, and we're honored to be affiliated with it. As for Andy Dean and I become friends over the years. He's a really sharp guy, really smart dude, and we just get along. And he was a very solid radio host in his own right when he was on the air. And now he's been doing more entrepreneurial business stuff, but he occasionally does some commentary. He used to go on CNN a fair amount as a Trump surrogate back in 2016. Andy and I, we just look. He's smart, knows stuff, and we respect each other, and we have good conversations. And so I got nothing but high fives and good feelings about Andy, and anything I can do to help him here. And we're going to get him on the show more. I mean, he's somebody that I think should be his voice should be heard by more folks. Rob writes, "You missed the most obvious flaw in Cuomo's 'you might kill someone if you don't wear a mask' speech. If I go out in public without a mask and someone dies, they were almost certainly at risk. So if they are out, they put themselves at risk, not me. I say mandatory masks at essential places like the supermarket. Anywhere else, you go there, you take your chances." Rob, interesting theory. Thank you for writing in. Edmund, "So it's been shown that using antibodies from people that had COVID-19 to cure COVID-19 works. Why can't the government pay people with antibodies to donate their blood for making these cures? Several million people have the antibodies now." Edmund, I don't think it's that clear and that effective. I think it's considered helpful. This is also the fancy way of saying it is convalescent plasma, but it's just antibodies in the blood being pulled out and given to somebody else. If you're really too far gone, part of the problem is by the time people get to the hospital, they're often too sick and too far gone for really any treatment to be very effective. And other people who aren't that far gone, aren't that sick, It's hard to tell if they're getting better because of the treatment or if they were going to get better anyway. But Edmund, I do appreciate you writing in and sharing your thoughts on this one. And let's save the rest. We got some more great roll calls here. Let's save those for tomorrow. We got some fantastic guests lined up for tomorrow, too. So it's going to be a great show, my friends. Please do pass the buck. Tell somebody. Just do me a favor. It really is a favor, and I really do appreciate it. Tell someone you know. Text them. Email them. Send them a link to the Buck Sexton Show. Say, you got to listen to this guy on radio. It's really worthwhile. That is my early Christmas and birthday present this year. So for me and producer Mark, although for him it's a Hanukkah present, but that's, you guys already know that. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for listening. Shields high.